Flight 5390 of British Airways. A British Airways BAC-111, carrying 81 passengers and 6 crew members, took off from Birmingham to Malaga on June 10, 1990. With over 2,200 hours of flight time on BA-111S, co-pilot Alistair Aitchison and Captain Timothy Lancaster were seasoned pilots who reported no problems during takeoff. They told the cabin crew they could be ready for food service at 17,000 feet after releasing their seatbelts. 37 minutes into the trip, Air Steward Nigel Ogden came into the cockpit to inquire as to what the pilots wanted for breakfast when the unthinkable occurred. The aircraft was shaken by the unexpected blowout of 2 windscreen panels on the left side of the cockpit, resulting in rapid decompression. Captain Lancaster was among the loose items that were hurled through the cockpit and weren't secured with straps. Despite his feet getting stuck on the control column, his torso was terrifyingly sucked out of the plane headfirst. In addition, the explosion had destroyed the pivots on the cockpit door and crashed it into the center console, obstructing vital instruments. The plane's autopilot disconnected as a result of the captain's feet dragging the control column forward, sending the aircraft into a steep dive. Air Steward Ogden was there in an instant, sprang forward, and grasped the captain's waist to prevent him from being pulled out all the way. Captain Lancaster was trapped against the top of the fuselage as the wind roared back in, creating a tornado of debris in the cockpit as the pressure equalized. As the aircraft plummeted, Ogden clung desperately to the captain, but co-pilot Aitchison was unable to get to the crucial controls. He made a mayday call, but he was unable to determine if the controllers had heard him above the howling wind. The aircraft started to descend into some of the nation's busiest airspace. In order to free the vital systems, 2 additional flight attendants battled their way into the cockpit, latching onto the captain and stamping on the door. By now, Ogden felt as though his arms were going to be severed, frostbite from the frigid 350 miles per hour winds and a shortage of air. The 2 other air stewards, unable to support the captain any longer, took hold of his feet. The co-pilot recovered control of the aircraft as they proceeded and drew up to begin a gentler fall. Captain Lancaster's face was pressed up against the window as his body started to slide down to the left of the aircraft. Hearts fell out of everyone in the cockpit. It didn't appear that he had survived. For a moment, they considered releasing his body. However, Ogden rejected the concept right away due to its fundamentals. He might even get sucked into one of the engines, which might bring the plane to an entirely stop. Then, Aitchison started the coveted task of solo downing of a 2-pilot jet. Out of the cockpit, the checklists and charts had likewise been swept away. There was no way it could get worse. He succeeded in getting in touch with air traffic control, who pointed him in the direction of Southampton Airport, an airport he had never been to before. Without the use of his charts, checklists, or captain, the controller managed to steer the aircraft downward and execute a successful emergency landing all by himself. 81 guests saw their life flash before their eyes, and all of them disembarked without a single injury being reported. However, Captain Lancaster's narrative wasn't quite a pleasant one. For 20 minutes, with temperatures as low as -1.4 degrees Fahrenheit, he had been pounded against the outside of the aircraft. There was no chance that he would live. Nevertheless, he opened his eyes as the paramedics were taking his body away. He was still living, He just had minor fractures, some bruises, and frostbite as a result of his ordeal. After a brief spell in a word, remarkable. What the hell happened then? After a thorough examination, it was found that the aircraft had received a standard maintenance a few days prior to the tragic flight. It was missing the captain's side windscreen, so it was on the list of things to mend. The shift maintenance manager made the decision to finish the task alone. Even though he hadn't replaced one in a few years, he neglected to consult the aircraft's handbook for the procedure. Upon extracting all 90 bolts holding the windscreen in place, he observed that they were quite deteriorated and made the decision to repair those as well. But as he would soon discover, the replacements he used were too narrow, just 0.2 of an inch, but still enough to present an issue. Flight 5390 was the following flight for which the aircraft was put back into service without a workover inspection. The pressure forced the narrow bolts out of their holes once in the air, causing the windscreens to pop out and almost causing the captain to lose his life. The event was the result of an aircraft maintenance culture that prioritized timely completion over safety precautions, relying on snap decisions and ignoring minor infractions. The investigation's conclusions led to significant adjustments being made to the work practices of British Airways maintenance engineers. It was no longer permitted for shift managers to self-certify their own job. There was to be regular retraining for engineers, and every few years, they had to recertify their qualifications. This would guarantee that any risky behaviors were rapidly abandoned, and that all pilots would feel secure in the knowledge that they would now be flying within their aircraft rather than on top of it. Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on our future content. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep exploring.